Good morning everyone. Today we from Group 2 of Effective Communication class are going to make a short presentation on the topic Barriers and Strategies for Effective Verbal Communication. Let me start with the definition of barrier. What is barrier? Barrier is anything that causes a message to not be received or understood by the listeners. A barrier is like a wall between the speaker and the listeners. This wall acts as an interference for the messages, which means the content of the messages will not be fully received by the listeners. So, the listeners will not have the full information or details on what the speakers originally talk about. The first barrier, jumping to conclusion. What is jumping to conclusion? Jumping to conclusion is the act of judging or making an opinion about a subject or topic without enough proof. To make a valid conclusion, you first need to search and gather your facts about the topic. After you gather the facts, you should make a detailed information of the facts and give it to your listeners. So the listeners will have more detailed information and understanding about the topic that you talked about. You should also not make assumption or use make-up reasons for your opinion on the subject, because this will only create misunderstandings to the listeners. The second barrier, lacking confidence. Lacking confidence is the difficulty of expressing a subject to the listeners. When you have a difficulty in expressing your content, the listeners will likely to pay less attention to you and your subject. So they will not fully receive all the information that you talk about. This is especially important when communicating with your group members, because you need confidence for making group decisions with your group members. When you lack confidence, your group members can easily have less trust in you. So whatever you are doing, like projects, will not have the outcome that you wanted or your group wanted. Lacking in confidence while communicating will also causes you not to use your full potential in expressing the topic. So whatever you wanted to say or whatever you have in mind will only be wasted.
Alright, the next barrier in effective verbal communication we're going to be looking at is lack of clarity. Now, what does it mean when I say lack of clarity? For example, in a presentation, in a group discussion, or even when talking to someone face to face, there are always two bodies involved. One, the speaker, and the other one is a listener. Now, a speaker is someone who tries to convey his or her message or ideas. A listener is a person who receives it. Now, once in a while, there are some cases where a speaker tries to convey his or her message to the listener, but the listener, he will receive it, but he might not understand what the speaker actually means. Now, as it says here, the speaker might understand the message, but the listener might not. When a speaker is trying to convey a message, in his or her mind, it might make sense. But when it comes to the listener, it might sound very confusing. Now, a good example here is the man, the professor, the student has studies wrong. Now, me as a speaker, I actually understand what that means. But when it comes to the receiver, some cases, like some receivers or some listeners might not actually understand what that means. Now, what does that actually mean? It means the student has a professor who knows a man who studies ancient Rome. Now, that sounds more easier than what's stated here, right? Like, as a speaker, I understood what that means. But after I, as a speaker, gave you an explanation, that's when you understood. That is how lack of clarity is a barrier in effective communication. What the speaker is trying to convey might not, the receiver might, the listener might receive it, but he or she might not understand what it actually means.
Next, we are going to talk about the strategies to tackle those barriers of communication. One of them is to focus on the issue and not the person. Specifically speaking, we have to find solutions to an issue instead of completely blaming the person. This is actually also one of the reasons why forgiveness is important in a relationship. We do not want to hold grudges so as to ensure smooth communication.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning. My name is MOHAMMAD HAMIZAN RAFIUDDIN bin AWANG ROSDI. I'm from Group 2 in Effective Com, and I'll be talking about one of the strategies to overcome barriers for effective verbal communication. So for my point is, it's going to be genuine rather than manipulative. Number one, when talking with someone or anyone, try not to influence their emotions or opinions. The point of having a conversation is to convey messages or ask for someone else's opinion rather than asking for someone else's opinion. When you are trying to change their opinion into your own, then it beats the entire purpose of asking for their opinion in the first place. For example, you like chicken and you ask your friend for his opinion by asking him which food is better, chicken or beef, and then he said that he likes beef, but you proceed to try to change his opinion by saying that chicken is actually better than beef. That actually is not a good thing, as each people have their own preferences. Number 2, be honest and straightforward. The truth is always faster. If you lie or not being completely honest with yourself, people may start thinking and labeling you that you are a liar, and it will be hard to make people believe in you when you are talking with anyone. Furthermore, lying can lead to consequences either to you or to the person you lie to. For example, you lie to your friend that you actually like eating ayam masak merah, for example, and then when he invites you to his home for lunch or dinner, he serves you ayam masak merah, and then you either force yourself to eat it or you come clean by telling him that you actually don't like it, and in the end hurt his feelings. It is easier to tell a lie, but it's more convenient to tell the truth. Third and final point, just be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be someone you're not in order to make people like you. Sure that you might make a lot of friends, but they only like that version of you and not the true version of you, not the real version of you. The people you talk with will appreciate you more if your personalities are great and honest, and it makes it easier to communicate. So, in conclusion, just be yourself. You are perfect the way you are.
Thank you, Hamizan. And last but not least, for our last point for our strategies, which is be flexible or being flexible. So flexibility, what does that mean? Flexibility means when you are able to adapt to changes quickly, whether it is in terms of perspectives or unexpected problems or changes. So we can't predict what's going to happen in the future. We can't predict what are the incoming problems and or changes. So if you are a flexible person, you are more versatile and you are more responsive to changes, which can benefit you as you can adapt to the changes or the problems quickly. So how to be a flexible person, how to be flexible? So for our first point, which is being an open-minded person, being open-minded. So there's a saying that goes, open-minded people don't care to be right, but they care to understand. For instance, if you think you are the type of person that think you are always right, try to consider others' perspectives, even when you disagree with them. There's no right or wrong answers. Everything is all about understanding. So you are likely to find it more easier to understand, to communicate with people around you, as you have as you view from their viewpoints or different viewpoints. In reality, not all plans will go according to as planned. So there will always be obstacles. So if you are being an open-minded person, you can have a better communication with your team, with people around you. Therefore, you can create more plan, backup plan, and therefore you can adapt to those changes, those problems more quickly, and you can increase and you can get a better result with it. And for the second point, which is staying calm and be optimistic. With this kind of attitude, you will benefit a lot. You can get a lot of benefit, and this can also benefit you to have a clear communication with people around you, with your team, and even you can have a clear communication within yourself, and you can hear your own thoughts. There's also a saying that goes, every problem has its own solution. So staying calm is much more better than panicking. And what are the outcomes that you can get for being flexible? So for our first outcome, which is more alternatives and more possibilities. So you can, from being flexible, you can have a better communication with people around you, with your team. So therefore you can create more plan. You can have a better plan with your team and can create more options. And therefore, for our second point, which is you can create a more impactful result as you work as a team. You can communicate with your team better. You can communicate with people around you much more better. And lastly, it is also a win-win situation for you and people around you when you have better communication with each other. And that is all from us. Thank you so much.